Well, welcome to our second Pylon podcast, and thank you so much for all the positive feedback we've had. It's great to receive, and it's encouraged us as we press on with our next podcast. We've got an idea next time maybe to do any questions. I think that's right, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, I think the thing is, if anyone's got anything that they would like to include as a sort of topic in the podcast, send a message to Robert on the Facebook thing. Captions here.
Yeah, that would be good. And very exciting. So today we have a film crew from the ITV Wales Sharp End team, and they're doing a feature on Pylons, and they're doing an interview with Andy and myself today, as well as a little bit on the podcast, and that will be going out, and hopefully by the time you get this podcast, some of you may have had a chance to see that.
So, right, okay, that's...
Is it worth saying something about the newsletter, Andy?
Yes. The newsletter's gone well. We've had good reactions to it. If anyone would like to have a copy of the newsletter, we're trying to make it every month, roughly, and if anything important happens. Let us have an email address. It can be sent to. It's distributed by email. Again, on the Facebook page and the captions below.
So, what's our first topic, Andy?
First topic. Right, I have a question here, and the question is: what's all this talk of £250 compensation?
Well, there's been a lot of coverage of this over the course of the last week, and this is to do with the government's Planning and Infrastructure Bill and Angela Rayner, and this was published last week, and it's received a pretty unanimous thumbs down, it has to be said. So the detail is £250 being offered if you live within a quarter of a mile of a pylon. And it's a payment to be deducted from your energy bill, and it will last for 10 years. So over 10 years, you'll get £2,500.
Oh, right, it's an annual fee. And it's in metres, wasn't it? Is it 500 metres?
500 metres, half a kilometre of a pylon. So, and interesting actually, the previous Conservative government were offering £1,000, so them offering 250 obviously is not a very good start.
Off on the wrong foot, really.
So most of the commentary is saying, look, this is tantamount to bribery. So what the government seem to want is to persuade activists and those who are opposed to this infrastructure to put up and shut up, and we're going to give you £250 and that should be enough. Well, it's not going to be enough because it's a paltry sum. It's a tiny amount of money. When you think about the impact of these pylons and the cost to the local economy and tourism in our case, which is very important in Carmarthenshire, the cost in terms of people's property, the loss of property value in thousands of pounds, the impact that this is having on farmers and their livelihood, and so on. So £250 in the context of those negative costs just doesn't even touch the sides.
No, the loss of value of a house that didn't have a pylon nearby before and then has a pylon nearby, it's expected to be, well, it's already, the planning, just having a planned pylon route going past your house is already affecting house values. So, we're in it. It's not something that's going to come just in the future. We are living in that now, and people are being affected by it. Yeah. But you were talking about, I don't know, 10% of the value of a house. Well, that's more than £2,500, isn't it?
No, yeah, absolutely. And it's not just these items as well. It's you live within a quarter of a mile of a quarter of a kilometre of a pylon. You've got the sound of the pylon. These things apparently they hum. You've got the considerable fear of health risks, and people have talked about leukemia, the effect on children, and you can't dismiss these things because there is a lot of research, and it's not conclusively proven, but there's a lot of research to suggest that there are real risks that health is affected by being close to a pylon. Well, you cannot put a price on that, just as you cannot put a price on outstanding world-class landscape or the amazing culture and heritage.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. £250 is just bonkers.
Okay. And we're going to talk about, we have an alternative. We have an alternative. We'll talk about that later on.
Yeah.
A week ago, you were interviewed on 5 Live, and a good interview. But afterwards, I know that you were upset by some of the comments made by the person who was interviewed after you, Chris Curtis, a Labour MP for Milton Keynes. Why was this?
Well, these interviews are tricky because you often don't get the chance to respond on air. I was upset because I felt that he was saying things which in some cases were not true. In other cases, he was ill-informed or simply ignorant of our situation. To be fair to him, he did say, look, I don't know the specifics of the project that Robert Lancaster is talking about. He did say that, to be fair, although you could argue he should have known. If he's on a programme, he's an MP for the United Kingdom, and he should have known. Anne Davis has certainly spoken in Parliament about the Pylon project in the Tywi Valley. She's certainly talked about cable plough in Parliament. So maybe he should have been a little bit better informed. But I just wanted to make a couple of specific points, Andy. Mm-hmm. One is, he's Labour MP for Milton Keynes. And he was saying, look, everyone's just got to suck this up. That's what he was saying. Everybody, these are really important national infrastructure projects, and the whole country has got to get on side. And these activists, they're in a tiny minority. We never hear about the people who are in favour. We only hear about the people who are opposed, which in our case is the majority. There's no doubt in our case, Carmarthenshire, the majority are opposed to it. But he was saying, look, you've all got to get on side here, irrespective of where you live, of the specific detail of your landscape, of your culture, or your heritage. Now, I know Milton Keynes. We used to live close to there for many years. We used to visit Milton Keynes. We used to take our children to the Snow Dome in Milton Keynes. Milton Keynes is a new town. And with great respect to Milton Keynes and to the people who live there, who I'm sure love it, as does Chris Curtis, and he was born and brought up there. But you cannot in all seriousness compare Milton Keynes with the Tywi Valley, with Carmarthenshire, with our amazing Welsh countryside and heritage. You just cannot do that. And I thought to do so in an interview of that sort was really quite insulting to the people of Wales. So that was one point I wanted to make. Okay. And the other point, without wanting to bang on too much about this, Andy, but the other point I was wanting to make is that you cannot be dismissive of activists. I really feel strongly that government have got to listen, and rather than just dismissing people who are opposed as if they were swivel-eyed loons, as David Cameron once described people as swivel-eyed loons. We are not swivel-eyed loons. And these activist groups, both in Wales and in England, are very well informed. There are a lot of people on them who are experts in their field, doing a lot of research, spending a lot of voluntary time, becoming involved and knowing their stuff. And government should listen, and they should say, look, actually, we need to have a more nuanced approach. And if these infrastructure projects are going to be accepted by the voting public, then rather than just cancel out consultation, dismiss these people as loonies, we should involve them and get involved with what they're saying.
I wouldn't for a moment have thought, maybe I'm wrong, that what you would like to see is a load of massive coal-fired power stations built along our coastline or whatever. People are generally very, very supportive of renewable energy, so-called green energy. It's how it's done.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Okay. Now, we were holding back on talking about the alternative that we have to a 90-kilometre run of pylons through some of the most beautiful countryside in Wales. Let's go into the thing about what is the alternative? Why do we not need to have these pylons?
Yeah. So, Andy, in the first podcast, we talked about cable ploughing, but we didn't go into any detail. And so let's unpack a little bit of this to help everybody realise why it is such a viable alternative option. I just want to start by talking about the costs.
Right.
So the Llandovery Pylon Group have done a lot of work on this and have published detailed costings of cable plough and compared that to the costs and the impact of pylons. So as I think everyone has heard before, people are suggesting that undergrounding costs 6 to 8 times as much as cable plough, as underground, as pylons. Sorry, and we've challenged that, so that's absolutely not true. In my interview of Chris Curtis, he said it was vastly more expensive to put cables under the ground. It isn't true. The breakfast scheme, which happened in 2014, undergrounded cables through open trenching, and it was 4 times more expensive.
Right, that's kind of like dig a canal. Yeah. Line it with concrete, put a lid on it with the cables inside.
Yeah, exactly, and wooden shuttering and things like that. So very old-fashioned way of doing it. Certainly not using new technology. So that was 4 times in 2014. So that's traditional open trenching. So we have calculated that cable ploughing would be about 2 times more costly than doing pylons. But that is the raw cost comparison, and it doesn't allow for any of the significant ancillary costs of pylons, which I want to go on to.
Okay.
So let me give you some examples of the additional costs. Vegetation and tree removal. So that will be significant. Wales has got a considerable tree coverage, more so than in England, and the 60 miles of cables up the Tywi Valley will involve removal of a lot of trees, a lot of ancient trees, broad-leafed native trees.
So you can't have them under a pylon?
No, you have to have a 100-metre wide band either side of the pylon route, and that clear band has to be devoid of all vegetation and all trees. So that's a cost. It's an environmental cost, clearly, but it's also an actual monetary cost. You've got the impact on agriculture. So the loss of subsidy payments for farmers, which has to be compensated for, that's a cost. You've got all the fencing and the ancillary costs associated with putting in place this band where you're going to be putting up the pylons.
Yeah, it's a building site that is 60 miles long.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it has to have fences, and it has to have security. Yeah. It has to have roads.
Yeah, and
all those things.
All those things. Haul roads for to get the concrete in. Thousands of tons of concrete underneath the pylons, with all the implications of that. Yeah. And if there are any services provided on overground cables, whether it's electricity, telephone, or what have you, they have to be undergrounded if the pylon line is going to go over them. So that's another cost.
Who pays for that?
Well, who pays for all of this is the question. Ultimately, you and I pay for it. We pay for it with the energy. We pay for our energy bills, and it comes off our energy bills.
And is that costed into the original cost of pylons?
No. I don't think they're allowing for any of these additional costs when they're making these comparisons.
How long is that for? How long is that kind of building period?
About 2 years.
Okay.
They reckon it's about 2 years when you're putting up pylons. Now, if you contrast that with undergrounding using cable plough, the new technology, it's completely different. You don't have any of these issues. You can avoid trees, for example. Farmers are not disrupted. So the machinery goes onto the land. The machinery will then put a narrow slit, and they can cover 1 or even 2 kilometres per day. They backfill as soon as they're finished. They may have to make more than one pass, but having done the number of passes in order to install the ducting, and they can then push the cable through pressure jetting, or they can pull it through, and then they're on, and the farmland is back.
Well, can you sort of go on the land again afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely.
You have animals on
absolutely.
On the
Livestock back on, and the disruption is minimal.
Right.
And the environmental disruption is also minimal. In contrast to what some people are saying, undergrounding will lead to a much bigger environmental impact. That again was Chris Curtis was saying that. Right. It isn't true.
So all that is being brought in is the cable.
Yeah, I suppose there is other machinery. There's obviously the cable plough machinery. There are tractors involved with that. So we're not saying that there's going to be no impact, but the impact is minimal compared with installing pylons.
Okay.
And the benefit. And then, Andy, what you've also got is this whole thing of the carbon footprint of these cables. The impact that pylons will have on the carbon emissions is considerable. And again, I don't think anyone's talking about this. We talked about the removal of the trees, there's the fencing, extensive machinery involved when you're doing pylons, haulage, concrete, steel production. I don't know where the steel will come from. I've heard that maybe it will come from Scandinavia because the financing is coming from Denmark and there's linkages up there with companies that produce steel. I don't know. But anyway, wherever the steel is coming from, it's very likely to be imported from overseas. So you've got the carbon impact of that, right. And the emissions involved. I've got a figure here of 14,739 kilograms of steel required per pylon. 14,000, that's nearly 15,000 kilograms of steel per pylon. I don't know how many pylons are involved with our 60-mile route, but a lot.
Yeah, it's several hundred, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you just have to imagine the carbon impact of all of that. So this must be taken into account as well. Yeah. Okay. Then I think in the video that Jason Thomas, the interview that you did with Jason Thomas, he talked about myth busting.
Right. Yeah. Do you want me to do some myth busting?
Yeah, do some myth busting.
I won't go longhand on these, but someone actually said to me in one of the meetings, the public meetings, and he was an engineer for the contractors, and he said cable ploughing can't be done up slopes. Yes, it can. Up as steep as 45 degrees, I've been told. I don't think we'll be going there, but it can be done up slopes. And it can be done down slopes. So given that we're on sort of fairly hilly country, it's fine. Wet ground, can't be done on wet ground. Yes, it can be done on wet ground. It can't go across roads, streams or rivers. Yes, it can. Absolutely no problem. They can go into rivers that are up to 2 meters deep and still plough down into the bed of that river and then come up the other side. The cables can't be installed by cable ploughing near buildings or livestock. Yes, they can. In some areas, the cables are cable ploughed into verges along the sides of roads, and you wouldn't go right next to a building, but that's because of the electricity rather than the actual cable in there. And cables can't be installed in rocky ground. Now, Jason Thomas said to me, in Wales, there's only one place where it's a bit difficult, and that's the Llyn Peninsula, because there's a lot of granite there. None of the rest of Wales is any problem at all for cable ploughing. So those are the myths. Those are the myths bust. We've got a video which is on the No Pylons website if you want a little bit more detail and hear the man himself telling you this. But it's straightforward stuff. It can be done.
Yeah. No, it's great, isn't it? So, well, hopefully that little segment in today's podcast might help people to have confidence in this new technology. Spread the word. Let's get the politicians on side.
Absolutely.
So, Andy, I thought maybe our last topic could be to update on politicians.
Yeah, well, they're the people who are going to make the decisions
Shall I go on that? Shall I start off on that?
So what are they doing?
Well, I haven't got a vast sort of insights, but I think it's worth saying, first of all, that we've had nothing regarding the IAG. So, as I said on the last podcast, the independent advisory group who are given the job of reporting on transmission, they are due to report this month, but we've had nothing back from them directly. So we wait out about the IAG. But it seems to me that the political parties are gradually lining themselves up for next year's election, and this is the
Senedd elections.
The Senedd elections, exactly, next May. So Plaid Cymru, in particular, seem to be pushing forward on the issue of pylons, and they had a meeting to which we were invited, and other activist groups were invited at Llanclwni, and with a good number of Plaid politicians there expressing their continued strong opposition to pylons and support for undergrounding. You were there, weren't you, Andy?
Yeah.
How did that
go? Very
that
interesting.
Go?
And it's obviously the beginning of the campaigning for them, running into next year. But they wanted to show everyone that they are absolutely not changing their opinion. They've been against pylons from the very beginning, and they still are in both in the Senedd and in Westminster.
Yeah. So I think so that's all good. That's all good. We contacted Reform. I think we may have mentioned that on the last podcast, and the chairman of the Carmarthenshire Reform Party came to see us, and we had a good chat, and it was nice to meet him. Following that, we've had no further feedback. So we asked for maybe Nigel Farage or someone, Richard Tice, to get more involved in our campaign, and hopefully that will happen. So far, nothing.
They're the other ones who are dead against pylons.
Indeed. Well, it's fair to say all the opposition parties are dead against pylons. They are. So we wait out for Reform. Maybe they've got other things on their minds at the moment.
Yeah.
The Conservatives, so they again in the same position. They're against pylons. It's an interesting announcement yesterday from Kemi Badenoch that the Conservatives are abandoning the 2050 net zero date, saying that it's impossible to achieve. So they are rowing back on net zero. She was keen to make the point that they are certainly not denying climate change, unlike Reform, who I think are denying climate change, but the Conservatives certainly not doing that. But they're just saying it's an unrealistic target, and they're rowing back. Now, I think that helps us, and I think it will help the Welsh Conservatives to support the opposition to pylons and whatever else. And we're not involved with the turbines. That's not part of our campaign. But there may be some knock-on effect with regards to policy towards renewable energy in Wales from the Conservatives. So I think we'll see what more comes out of that.
And we've got the Lib Dems.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Anne Dodds in the Senedd, who's the single member for the Lib Dems, who holds an important position. Yeah. Did I say Jane Dodds?
No, you said Anne Dodds.
No, I'm sorry. Right. Jane Dodds. Get these things right.
Yeah.
So she's got an important position there, but we've not had anything from her recently.
Okay. And then, other than that, it's the ruling Labour Party in the Senedd, who seem to still be in lockstep with Westminster, Ed Miliband, Great British Energy, and kind of it seemed, you going back to your interview on radio interview, and Chris Curtis, he's in. He's singing from the hymn sheet. They are singing from the hymn sheet.
I think, a bit alarmed when the £600 million financing package was announced by the Danish pension fund for Bute Energy Greengen. Bit alarmed that Eluned Morgan was very evident in that.
Was in the video.
She was in that press, with the press coverage of that. And so you sort of get the feeling that she's slightly in cahoots. You know what I mean? What is the position of, you know, how close are they?
You're choosing your words here, aren't you?
I am a bit Andy, because I don't want to say things that are unfair or that are untrue. But just as a member of the public, seeing it It wasn't a good look.
Doesn't look good. No,
Yeah.
It doesn't look that there's a huge amount of sort of democracy going on.
Yeah. But it's just a bit suspicious, and they're not talking to us at the moment. Maybe that's because they're in a process, and politically they feel it's not important that they don't talk to us and to other groups. But we don't feel good about it, and there's a sort of little bit of suspicion about what's going on behind the scenes.
So when the IAG report goes in, and then it is, I presume that there's a sort of a process by which the rest of the Senedd gets to hear about what they said. We will know whether it's all kind of positive or not positive.
We will, but I think they will announce their decision, and then they will announce the decision. There'll be discussion after the decision's made, but not before the decision's made.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Okay.
So I think it'll be a fait accompli.
Yeah. So it's not a kind of like a kind of public inquiry.
No, it's not. No. So that's a bit worrying, which is why it's so important that we influence that decision in whatever way we can.
Yeah, because once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why it's really helpful that the television crew are here today. That we're going to get coverage on ITV News to ITV Wales, Sharp End, where it's very helpful, and everything, any interviews we can give, this podcast, and the whole thing of getting the story out there to put pressure on the politicians to make the right decision.
Great. Well, I think that wraps us up, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll say goodbye. Thank you very much, and don't forget to if you've got any questions. Please get in touch.
Yeah, and I think also do share this podcast with your friends, with colleagues, and so on to spread the word. We'd love to have more people viewing it next time.
Yeah.